This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a Consonance CD16B. Consonance is a high-end brand created by Opera Audio, a Chinese manufacturer established in 1994. They make fancy tube amplifiers and other things that would be out of reach for all but the most affluent hi-fi enthusiast. This esoteric approach clearly led to experimental design choices like this solid wooden fascia. I don't know how many of these were made, but I couldn't find a picture of another one anywhere online. This unit belongs to a channel viewer with whom I recently met since he happens to live nearby. He picked this up when he was living in Beijing, but it stopped working after just 3 months, refusing to read discs. He also owns this more conventional aluminium-faced version, but since he preferred the wooden one, he stripped the transport out of the aluminium one to get the wooden one working again. This worked for a few months, but then the no-disc error returned. So did they both happen to have bad pickups, or is something else going on? I've already removed the screws from this because I had to do an initial inspection for the owner, so we can cut straight to the chase. And this is a very heavy lid, very thick material. Nice textured finish, and you could say it's a bit underwhelming inside. We have this toroidal transformer which marks it out as being a higher end piece of equipment, but then by contrast we have this bog standard Sony transport, which doesn't feel high end at all. Then we've got a number of connectors that aren't actually connected to anything, but they don't appear to have any homes. Same down here. Maybe these are for different models. They've just used the same wiring looms. The pickup is a KSS213Q, and dare I suggest that the owner was a little heavy-handed at some point. There's supposed to be a connector at the bottom here, but that's been completely ripped off. There's also meant to be a flat flex cable linking that connector to this PCB. That's also missing. Fortunately, I have this from my organ donor mini disc recorder. This has 19 traces on it. I only need 17, I think, but I can always trim 2 off the end. So you can see it is too wide, but I think the pitch is exactly the same. And crucially, it is long enough. Got a date code here of 2008, and we do have a digital out, coaxial only, but this is interesting. The original screen printing suggests 220 volts, but it's not. It's actually this one that's correct. But this says 110 volts, and the main standard in the US is actually 120. This could be the source of the problem. If the device wants 110 volts and is consistently getting 120, that could be putting stress on the internal components and causing that premature laser failure. But has the laser failed? Well, I would like to test that, but I can't just hook it up because of that broken connector. So I did buy this replacement pickup. This is a KSS213C, whereas this is a 213Q. I don't really think that makes any difference, but rather than just throw in the new pickup, I want to desolder this connector, fit it onto here, and make sure this really is dead before I replace it. And you may have noticed that the aluminium version of this had its power button on the front, but because this wooden panel is so thick, they couldn't do that. So instead the power is controlled by this rocker switch on the underside, which definitely feels a bit DIY. And I've had to fit these extra tall feet just to make sure there's enough room to get your hand under there. So I'm going to take this transport out, and all the screws in this thing, well, apart from these two, are hex screws, like machine screws. And I don't know whether I've got a driver deep enough to get in these holes. Well, I do, but it's too wide to fit in there. So that could be a problem. Let's take the clamp off first. Also going to remove this tray, and to do that I need to remove this little piece at the end. And then this is one of those where you've got 2 clips, and insert a toothpick into each. Releases the tray. You can see they've had to fit this extension on the end of the tray just to get over the thickness of this wooden panel. That belt is probably okay. Well, sometimes if you're lucky, a flathead screwdriver can undo a hex screw. It's the right width. This one is not. Oh, this will fit down there. I think it wouldn't before because the tray was slightly obscuring the hole. So I think we're okay. Yeah, it's just these machine screws everywhere. Well, this one's a bit tighter. Maybe my other bit holder is slightly narrower. Nope. Well, that one's come loose. If I don't put the bit all the way down, if I just sort of do it at the end, I think I've just got enough depth. Just about got them out. Not sure how I'm going to get them back in again. Oh, there's another connector under here. That was disconnected. Presumably that goes in here. Otherwise we can just disconnect this. Everything about this feels cheap and flimsy. But let's get the chassis out of the way. And removing the old pickup is quite easy. We've just got this nylon piece here we need to bend out of the way so we can slide the rail forward. Well, I thought that would give me a bit more leeway. Well, it would be easy if this gear came off, but it doesn't seem to. So we can nip it together on this side, push it through. There we go. Wow, that really is cheap. Still doesn't want to come off. Guess I need to remove the whole thing. Got these 4 screws in the bottom. Well, that certainly makes it easier. So now we can bend aside this piece and slide the rail out completely. And despite being an original Sony pickup, as you can clearly see here, this is all plastic. You don't even have any brass bushings on the holes here. I mean, this just weighs nothing. So first I need to remove all these old connector pins. And these pins are just falling out now. Okay, those are all out. I have finally ordered myself a proper desoldering gun because using solder braid is just getting ridiculous. But it was meant to come yesterday and didn't. So for now I have to persevere with the old way. And you can see the new pickup has these contacts shorted with a solder blob, and that will need to be removed if I do end up fitting this one. That's just to prevent static damage to the laser during shipping. So now I can fit the connector into the original pickup. And you might ask why I'm doing this instead of replacing the pickup straight away. But I'm just curious to see whether there is any life in this. Plus I'd always rather use the original parts if possible. And I've no doubt that this Sony pickup is better quality than my eBay knockoff, even if they are both just plastic. Okay, there's actually 16 pins on this connector and 19 traces on this cable. So I'm going to cut the last 3 off. I did triple check that number since they're a little bit tricky to count. Well, without the screws it doesn't actually locate. It just sits right on top of these standoffs. But I can connect it with the rear 2 screws. I need to connect this as well. I should have connected this first, really. It seems to go in okay. Connect this. Alright, I think we're all back together. And to test it, I'm going to use this step-down power transformer. This is for Japanese devices that run on 100 volts. And I know this requires 110, but I'd rather underpower it than overpower it. So let's turn it on first of all, using our weird rocker switch at the bottom. And this is the only 2008 album I could lay my hands on. It's weird that the open-close switch is here. You'd expect it to be here. I mean, that's the order, isn't it? Open, play, stop. Well, I didn't spin it up, but it didn't clamp it either. So I think I might have just got my cogs misaligned. Let's remove the clamp and see if we do have a laser output. I think there was something, barely detectable, but it is trying to focus, so there must be some output. But something's not right because with the clamp on, that puck isn't spinning. It's like it's not lifting up high enough. This whole thing just feels very loose. Are those shock absorbers on the right way round? It just feels like there's too much play in these shocks. Yeah, I just searched for a picture of this and there are meant to be springs on here and these screws should be washered. So that's why it's not sitting in the right place. But I do have some springs, courtesy of this spring assortment set. So I think these might do the job. I just need some washers as well. I think these should do the job. Well, that is a vast improvement. I got that set of springs for the Revox player and I never thought I'd use it again, so that's quite pleasing. Well, let's try that again. See if we actually get a disc spin this time. Well, I forgot to fit this little switch here. That's why the tray closed on its own, but it appears it's not going to read anyway. But it is now clamping the disc properly. So perhaps we have a bad pickup after all. Well, that laser output did look minimal at best, but I do think it was worth trying. So back to square one, I need to remove this connector again. So that should fit nicely in the replacement pickup. Excuse the fan noise, I've got myself a fume extractor. And of course I need to break this solder bridge as well. In all my CD player repairs, this is the first time I've actually fitted a replacement pickup. And there's no guarantee this is going to work. I notice that there aren't any adjustment pots on the main PCB, no tracking and focus controls. The only adjustment we've got is this one for the laser itself. So let's get this properly lined up. Okay, new pickup. Will it read the disc? Well, this is the trouble. A new pickup isn't going to have the same adjustment unless that flat flex cable is slightly misaligned. We do have an output from the new laser. Well, one of these pins isn't getting through. This one here, which should be this one. It's not coming up. One of the pins did look damaged in that connector actually. I thought it would be okay. I'm going to jump it with this wire just to see if it makes a difference. Well, rather than try and solder this other end of the wire to the end of the cable, I should probably connect it directly to the pad on the PCB. It's going to be the fourth one from this end, so I'm going to have to remove this little board, which of course means labeling my connectors. Although I think in this case they're all different. Then I've got these stray connectors that aren't connected to anything, so I could have mistakenly plugged one of those in, I guess. I mean, hardwiring anything is not good practice, but for the purposes of testing, I think it's okay. Okay, let's try again. And by the way, when I press close, look at the C in relation to the rest of the word. There's a huge gap and it's quite annoying. Well, it's read the disc. Oh, this is actually a good opportunity to show you the remote control. I mean, look at this thing. If you've ever seen the movie Pleasantville with that remote control, well, that's what this reminds me of. Anyway, let's see if we have playback. It's interesting. There's a little pause when it skips to when it starts playing. We've also got this jog dial here on the end for changing tracks, and it's not self-centering, you just have to turn it a little bit. I don't like that as a control. Nevertheless, we do seem to have full functionality back. I don't know if this is A-B repeat. What's this do? Oh, it's a dimmer. Well, that's weird. It doesn't even say that. Oh, and this is the time button. It's definitely a weird machine, this. But yeah, without this remote, you're very limited on your controls. Incidentally, I noticed this little circle in the display, and I wondered what it was for. But then I saw these segments around it on the display, but those never light up. It's almost like a progress wheel, but it doesn't actually do anything. So I think that's all I can do. As I say, there's no adjustment pots on the board here. I can't even see a test point for measuring the eye pattern. And you won't find a schematic or service manual for this either. So maybe it was the fact that it was being overpowered at 120 volts that killed the laser, because it seems quite happy at 100 volts. Almost forgot about the front screws in the transport, but I found a bit extender which should enable me to fix those. Incidentally, this is the inside of the aluminium faced one. We can see the transport and this rear PCB are completely missing, so there's no chance of getting this working. And this panel's pretty thick as well, but they managed to put the power button on the front for this one. Normally I'd end the video at this point, but while editing it occurred to me that when I tested the original pickup, we still had that issue with pin 4 of the cable. So what if it was actually okay all along? Well, in the name of science, I went back and refitted it. Okay, I've removed the replacement pickup and refitted the original, and I also managed to repair that connector, so all those pins are now getting through without the jumper wire. But will it work? No, but at least that satisfied my curiosity. I know for sure this pickup is bad, and it was worth doing anyway just to repair that connector. Does that laser output look any different now? No, there's still something there, but clearly it's not enough. This might be the strangest player I've worked on so far, and to be honest, it's not for me. If it sounded amazing, that would be something, but I really wouldn't be able to tell it apart from most of the budget players I featured. Add to that the lack of features, and it's ultimately relying solely on its unusual appearance. But that's it for now. Thanks to Craig for letting me work on it, thanks to you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.